The crucifix watches him from the shelf, old, wooden, worn smooth by generations of prayer. He tears the plastic strip off the DNA kit, like it's something sacred. His grandmother sits behind him, silent, rosary beads coiled tight in her fingers. She doesn't blink. Neither does he. The screen loads. A map flashes. Then numbers. 23% Levantine. 19% North African. 0% Italo-Celtic. He stares. The church bells outside start ringing. But he stays seated. His breath is shallow now. "This can't be right," he whispers, barely audible. His hand hovers between the laptop and the crucifix like he's stuck between two worlds. You might not realize it, but identity doesn't always show up where you expect. He grew up believing his ancestors built the churches in Palermo. Now the DNA says something else, that they might have come from the deserts of Syria or the coasts of Tunisia, people who prayed in languages the Vatican never approved. The room is quiet, but not empty. Incense from the morning mass still lingers in the air. It mixes with the sharp smell of plastic from the kit. Two types of ritual, colliding in a single breath. On the screen, his ancestry blooms in foreign colors, clusters he can't pronounce, regions he's never visited, names he's never heard at home. He looks at the old black and white photo on the shelf. His great-grandfather in a priest's cassock. The man who blessed every meal, baptized every child. And now, his body feels hollow, like the floor just shifted under a family tree he thought was solid. Imagine finding out your last name, your religion, your whole origin story. Might be a mask someone else wore before you. A costume passed down, hiding something older, stranger. Outside, the bells keep ringing. But he doesn't move. He just stares at that number, 0. 0 Italo-Celtic. 0 confirmation. 0 answers. If his faith didn't match his blood, whose faith does he really carry? And what else did history forget to tell him? She never saw Rome. She never prayed. She died before the word Italy was even whispered into history. Her tooth was found in the dark belly of a limestone cave in Molise. Cold air licks the walls. The flashlight shakes in the archaeologist's hand. Dust hangs, slow and silent. Then he finds it. A single molar, buried in layers of stone and time. Epigravidian. 18,700 years ago. No temples. No crosses. No gods. Just her people chasing deer, carving bone, burning fire to keep the dark away. They were small, strong, quiet, and they left no names, only handprints in ochre, painted high on the cave wall. You can still see them, pressed there like a whisper from another world. You might think your roots begin in a church or a castle, but maybe they start here, in silence, in fear, in the cold breath of survival. Her DNA matches modern Central Italians. Not a little. Almost exactly. Same maternal line. 20,000 years unbroken. She may have eaten wild berries, where you now sip espresso. Her tribe may have starved on a hill that now grows Chianti grapes. You walk paved roads. She walked cracked earth, barefoot, scanning for movement, rabbit, wolf, rival. The only law was hunger. The only prayer was to wake up warm. Have you ever wondered what your ancestors looked like before names, before nations, before God? Her skin was probably dark, her eyes wild and quick. She wouldn't know Latin if you screamed it in her face, but her blood still flows in yours. She never saw a Bible, but you carry her in every cell of your body. So how did we go from her to cathedrals, from cave fires to golden crowns? Someone came, not with weapons, but with symbols, with riddles, with gods. They didn't just build temples, they buried something. And what they buried is still under your skin. The writing is there, but no one can read it. A bronze mirror, pulled from the earth near Tarquinia, glints in the sunlight. Its edges are carved with strange stars, symbols no living person can understand. Nearby, the tomb doors creak open. Stale air rushes out, like something has been waiting to be heard. Inside, skeletons wrapped in silence, weapons beside them, gold rings, clay jars, names scratched into stone in a script no one's ever cracked. Not Latin, not Greek, not anything else, just Etruscan. And here's the twist. Their DNA, almost identical to the Romans, Same genome. Same mothers. Same bones. You might not expect that. Two people sharing meals, fighting wars, loving the same land, but calling the gods by different names. One spoke the future's language. The other? Lost to dust. A linguist once spent 30 years trying to decode their words. When he saw their genome was Roman, he cried. Not because it solved the mystery, but because it made it worse. They lived, he said, as foreigners inside their own bodies. Imagine this. Your ancestors singing hymns in a language no one remembers. Next door, their neighbors pray in Latin. Same blood, different heaven. And now, that soil is Catholic. That air carries church bells. But if you press your ear to the earth, just deep enough, you can almost hear the old chants. They're still there. Beneath the Latin, beneath the silence. They didn't lose their lives. They lost their language. That was the price of becoming Roman. And you might carry their DNA, but not a single word of their story. So when the Republic marched in, when the togas came, and the crosses, and the law, what else did it wipe away? Because after the Etruscans fell, their gods didn't just disappear. They were renamed, rewritten, rebranded, and something darker came with them. Something more permanent. Something genetic. A child's bones lie beneath the Roman forum. Gold coins near her head. Roman coins. But her DNA? It points not to Italy, but to Syria. She was buried in the heart of the empire, but her blood belonged to another coast. Lebanon. Maybe Damascus. Maybe a city that no longer exists. 27 bodies were found. Every single one had foreign roots. Anatolia. Egypt. The Levant. Not one matched ancient Latium. Not one was genetically Roman. And yet, they lived, died, and were buried as Romans. Picture the streets. Dust rising under sandals. Market calls in Greek. Prayers whispered in Aramaic. A mother scolding her child in Punic. Latin. It's the quietest voice in the room. You might not realize this, but your Roman ancestors may have never set foot in Rome. Maybe they were Egyptian traders, Syrian stonecutters, African soldiers who marched so far west. They died thinking they'd reached the end of the world. A man from Carthage joins the Roman army. He fights in Gaul. He marries a woman from Germania. Their child speaks Latin, serves in the Senate, and calls himself Roman. But his Y DNA? Still North African. The empire didn't just conquer territory. It absorbed people. Language, blood, custom, all melted together. Rome didn't keep its identity. It traded it. Imagine this. A mosaic of Christ on an ancient villa wall. Each apostle painted in vivid color. One has Asian features. Another has African curls. This isn't a mistake. It's a memory. Rome became the world, but it forgot itself. And if you carry Roman ancestry today, you carry that forgetting. When the empire burned, its temples crumbled. Its books turned to ash. But its genes? They scattered like sparks. So how did Sicily become the place where those sparks landed and refused to go out? A minaret once stood where the cathedral now rises. Palermo, 900 CE. The call to prayer echoes over Roman ruins. A voice drifts across stone, sweet and sharp, mixing with the scent of crushed basil and warm bread. In the alley below, a priest walks past a butcher who speaks Greek. Inside a chapel, a Greek icon watches from one wall. On the other, Arabic calligraphy carved into stone. You thought Sicily was Catholic. That's just the final layer. Today, the DNA tells the real story. Modern Sicilians carry 20% North African ancestry, 15% Greek, 10% West Asian. One genome, 3 continents. A woman in Catania stares at her ancestry results. Her hands shake. Phoenician, she whispers. But I'm Italian. Her nana always said their blood came from the hills. But the DNA says it came by sea. From ancient Tyre, from the traders who once sailed under purple flags and starless skies. You might not realize it, but your Sunday sauce carries a map. The cinnamon in your meat. The couscous in your cupboard. The olives in your martini. None of it is native. None of it is pure. It's all stitched together from conquerors, migrants, and prayers in a dozen tongues. Step into an old church in Palermo. Feel the floor creak under your feet. Light filters, through stained glass. But look closely. Under the crucifix, there's a mirab, a silent echo from when this house of God faced Mecca, not Rome. Imagine your ancestors lighting candles in temples no longer standing. Imagine them whispering prayers no one speaks anymore. That's the story of Sicily. The island didn't choose one god. It took them all, worshipped them, buried them, then built the next faith on top. So, if your family has been Catholic for generations, ask yourself this. What if the very first prayer they ever said wasn't in Latin? What if it wasn't meant for Rome at all? The wafer melts on his tongue. Soft, sacred, almost weightless. A priest in Puglia bows his head as the bell rings. But later that night, under sterile lights, his DNA spits out a surprise. 40% Anatolian. He squints at the screen, then chuckles. Guess I'm Old Testament. You can baptize a child, give him a saint's name, raise him under the steeple. But when scientists scanned over 1,600 Italian genomes, they found zero markers for Catholicism. Zero. Not a single genetic hint of belief. The Eucharist is holy in church, but under a microscope, it's just carbon, nitrogen, and water. No miracle. Just molecules. You might not like hearing this, but your faith didn't come from your blood. It came from your parents, your grandparents, from repetition, from ritual. Not from the body, but from the story. In the lab, faith disappears. But DNA remembers everything. It remembers the forest gods your ancestors once feared, the desert temples they left behind, the chants, the sacrifices, the silence, the forgotten tongues. Imagine this. 10,000 ancestors in your family line. Not one of them said the word Catholic until maybe the last 30. What did the others believe? Who did they pray to? Did they even pray? Your DNA is full of voices. None of them speak Latin. None of them care who your priest is. Because DNA doesn't care. It only remembers. And here's the twist. The faith that brings you comfort, the thing that gives you identity, it's not written in your body. It's layered over your bones, like paint over stone. So if belief isn't in your blood, then what are relics? Those holy bones in gold boxes. Those shrines people cross oceans to see. What if the truth in those bones doesn't match the stories we were told? They called it holy, sacred, untouchable. But when scientists tested the Shroud of Turin, the cloth said to wrap Christ's body, something strange bled through. Not just one DNA profile, not even two, but dozens. Traces from India, from North Africa, the Caucasus, Southern Europe, all mixed, like a crowd pressed into one final embrace. A lab assistant looked at the data, blinked, then whispered. This wasn't touched by one man, it was touched by thousands. And it didn't stop there. A vial sealed in velvet. Label reads, Blood of Saint Januarius. For centuries, pilgrims watched it liquefy like magic. Scientists tested it. The result? Ordinary male blood. No miracle. No mystery. No divine fingerprint. You might not realize it, but even the holiest bones can lie. A relic said to belong to Mary, the Virgin. Smuggled out, tested in secret. It came back carrying mitochondrial DNA linked to Central Asia. Mongolian. Not Mediterranean. Not Judean. And definitely not Italian. Imagine the scene. A gold-plated box opens in a stone church. Inside, bones wrapped in silk. The air smells like old wax and dust. But something else rises. Doubt. The priest stares. He doesn't speak. Just nods. As if accepting something he's known deep down, but never wanted to say out loud. You kneel before these relics. You cross yourself. You whisper prayers. But what if those bones never heard your language? Never knew your saints? Never belonged to your story? What if they were just bones? There's power in belief. But DNA doesn't care about faith. It only tells the truth, no matter how messy, or how much it hurts. And yet, even now, people buy DNA kits hoping to find something holy, something clean, something that proves they belong. But what if the truth doesn't look like a miracle? What if it looks like a stranger buried in someone else's story? She stared at the screen, jaw tight, eyes glassy. The DNA test said 32% Balkan, but she's from Florence, born and raised. Her voice breaks. But I'm pure Italian. She prints the page, folds it once, then again. Her hands are shaking. On the kitchen counter, a candle flickers beside a shrine to Saint Anthony. Her nana lit that candle every night, for protection. Now the paper lies beside it, like an accusation. Her brother takes the same test. His result? 40% North African. Same parents, same home, but two completely different stories. You might trust those colorful pie charts. They look clean, neat, scientific, but they don't show your great-grandfather's second wife, the war orphan adopted in silence, the shipwreck survivor who stayed and never spoke his language again. DNA tests only reach back 5 generations. 5. But your genome is 1,000 stories deep, and not all of them were told at the dinner table. Imagine this. A family sits down to Sunday lunch. Pasta on the table. Wine in the glass. Laughter, music, tradition. Then someone opens an envelope that says, "Actually, your roots trace to the Balkans, and the Maghreb, and the steppes of Central Asia." The laughter fades. You thought you were one thing. Now you don't know what to believe. The crumpled test results sit beside the shrine. The candle burns low. But faith? Faith flickers when numbers start to erase the myth you were raised with. Have you ever wondered what your name really means? Or how many hands shaped it before it reached you? Because these tests don't just show ancestry. They shatter legacy. And if the chart says you're not what you thought, are you still who you are? So, what does it mean to be Italian when the bloodline says otherwise? There's no such thing as Italian blood, only the memory of who passed through. Sardinia still holds the bones of Neolithic farmers, untouched, unchanged. But sail down to Sicily, and the genome becomes a storm. Greek, Arab, Norman, Phoenician, layered, mixed, endless, a continent's worth of footsteps sealed in one island. In Calabria, a man opens his DNA report. His Y chromosome screams from the steppes, his father's line, born on horseback. But his mother's side? Phoenician queens, sea traders, temples, spices. His face turns pale. He always thought they were shepherds. You walk through an old village. The priest's voice carries over stone streets. Latin echoes through a square. But above the chapel door, Arabic curves are carved in stone. Still there. No one talks about them. But they're watching. You might not realize it, but you weren't born for martyrs. You were born for migrants. From survivors. From strangers who stayed. The olive trees you pass on the way to work. Planted by hands that didn't speak Italian. The fields, the food, the songs. They all arrived on someone else's ship. And never left. Every invader added a verse. The Romans brought law. The Etruscans brought mystery. The Lombards brought bone and sword. The Arabs brought math, science, sugarcane. The Normans brought steel and scripture. All of it got woven into you. You say you're Italian. But what does that mean, really? Your genes remember things your family never told you. They whisper in the back of your skull. In languages you've never heard. Names you'll never know. Faces buried under cities, under fields, under churches. And somewhere, deep in the ground, one skeleton connects all of it. A child. A grave. A DNA profile that pulls the whole story into focus. But who was she? And why was she buried like a Roman, but born from everywhere else? She was buried beneath a church, but she never heard a word of Latin. Her bones lay under an old altar in Lazio. Dust sealed them in for nearly 2,000 years. A small body. A girl. No older than 10. Arms crossed over her chest. Coins at her feet. The remains of faith and empire, packed tight into one grave. Then came the brush. A sweep of the hand. Soil lifted from her ribs. The light hit her skull for the first time in centuries. The silence cracked. Archaeologists expected a local. Maybe a Roman child from a noble family. But the DNA? It told a different story. 48% North African. 42% Anatolian. Just 10% local. She didn't come from here. Not really. She died a Roman citizen, but her blood said otherwise. Her ancestors didn't build Rome. They were absorbed by it. You might not realize it, but identity can be stitched together after death. She wasn't born Roman. She became Roman the moment she was buried like one. Imagine her walking through the market, smelling olive oil, incense, roasted lamb. She might have spoken Greek, or Berber, or something that's now extinct. She might have prayed to gods we no longer name. But in the end, she was dressed like a Roman, placed beneath a Christian altar, made into something the world would understand. Not because she was, but because history needed her to be. You say you're Italian. But if this child became Italian after she died, what does that make you? Are you your blood, your birthplace, or just the last chapter someone else wrote down? Because history wasn't a lie. It was a palimpsest. And you, your name, your faith, your whole story, was written last. So who wrote it, and what did they erase to make room for you? Church bells ring, but they don't sound the same anymore. A cathedral in Palermo. Its walls were once a mosque. Before that, a Roman temple. And before that, something older. Something no one remembers. The camera pulls back. Above it, DNA strands twist like smoke over crumbled ruins. Stone crumbles, but the genome survives. You've been told you're Italian, Catholic, a child of saints and soldiers. But you are not your baptism. You are not your surname. You are not the anthem they taught you to sing in school. A woman in Rome stares at her ancestry test. It's a mess, Greek, North African, Persian, Germanic. She laughs. It's chaos. It's beautiful. And she means it. You might not realize it, but your story was never clean. It was never pure. It was never simple. It was survival. People mixed, fled, prayed, and stayed. And somehow you happened. You were sculpted, not from marble, but from strangers. From bones that didn't belong together, until they did. The scent of olive trees rolls over empty hills. A gust of wind blows through a ruined chapel. The bells fade into the distance. And for a second, the land holds its breath. Have you ever wondered what you'd find if you peeled back every name, every story, every border? If you let the blood speak for itself? Because what you carry isn't heritage, it's momentum. A force that never stopped moving. You belong, not because of where your people came from, but because they stayed. Again, and again, and again. So if the lie was simplicity, then what else have we oversimplified? Next time, we ask, what if the Indo-Europeans weren't the beginning but the end?